While Michael and I were enjoying our multi-course meal, I sensed a couple arriving in the room next to us. Their voices, filled with happiness, sounded familiar to me. "You're really happy today, aren't you?" "Well, of course. That annoying kid has finally grown up. I can divorce without paying child support now. And finally, I can marry you. Is it okay if we sit here?" Michael asked from outside the closed door. "Ah. What is it?" "Oh, my apologies. Were we too loud?" "No, that's not a problem, Dad." As the door opened with these words, Robert was taken aback. "My name is Naomi Hudson, a 46-year-old cram school lecturer. My husband, Robert, is 4 years my senior and runs an architectural firm. He established this firm a few years after we got married, but initially, it was tough to secure clients and manage the finances. That's why, before we got married, I was a teacher, and after giving birth to our only son, Michael, I worked as a tutor and cram school lecturer for the immediate high income and stability. I used to pack my schedule with work, no matter what. This inevitably made my routine nocturnal, and there were days I couldn't do anything around the house. There were times when little Michael was left at my parents' house. But a few years later, Robert's business stabilized, and it started growing. I didn't need to pack my schedule with work anymore. However, by that time, I had grown to love my current job. I became passionate about how to guide children of Michael's age. And Michael himself grew up straight and tall, which is hard to believe considering how we raised him. Now, he is attending the law school. He has been interested in law since middle school and seems to want to become a lawyer. He is only in his second year, but he has already started preparing for the bar exam alongside his classes. Having a clear dream for the future is great. I've always wanted to be a teacher. But not in the sense of teaching at a school. I wanted to help each child find their way. My current job fulfills that old dream of mine. Moreover, I feel glad that I kept working when Michael asked me about his studies. From middle school until midway through high school, whenever he had a question about his schoolwork, he would ask me. He is competitive and hates not understanding things. I don't usually hover over him, but when he asks, I do my best to explain things in a way that makes sense to him. So, despite being an absent mother most of the time, Michael was kind to me. Probably, my mother's parenting while I frequently left him at her house when he was little played a significant role. I'm truly grateful for that. Thanks to this, Michael and I have a good relationship even now as he turns 20. However, my relationship with Robert has somehow become more formal. Things were really good until we had a child. I first met Robert at a college mixer. He was a young man working at an architectural firm, and his appeal was different from the usual education major guys I knew. He was interested in me because I was a type he had never encountered before. We started dating somewhat casually and eventually got married. But when starting his own firm became a reality, we began to clash. The timing was just bad. It was around the time we were considering enrolling Michael in kindergarten. He seemed to have had some conflict with his boss at the architectural firm where he was working, which triggered his decision to start his own firm. But starting a firm is not an easy task. If you're just working for someone else, you simply do the job that's given to you. But if you go independent, first and foremost, you have to find work on your own. Robert surely was skilled as a designer. However, when it came to management, he was nothing more than a novice. I decided to find a job that paid enough to cover all our living expenses. The place I initially chose to work was a tutoring center nearby. Although the hourly pay was excellent, the hours available to work were limited. When I asked the owner of the tutoring center if I could work more hours, he introduced me to a friend who ran a prep school. From then on, I fully committed to my job. House chores took a back seat. I'd catch up on weekends or have my mom come over to help. By the way, I didn't expect Robert to help with chores. What I wanted from him was to get his newly started design firm on track. Perhaps my attitude seemed spiteful to him. When I'd come home late from work, he used to often remark, "Ah, leaving Michael alone like that, such a good mom, huh?" Such words, especially when he was sipping on his beer, hurt. But I didn't usually retort. I was too exhausted at that time to even think about arguing. Eventually, Robert stopped making such snide remarks. Because his design firm was finally starting to thrive. He became busier, often working till the wee hours. "It's easier this way," Michael would often say. My wonderful son, by middle school, had learned to cook and would prepare a late dinner for me. Warm stews in the winter were divine, especially after coming in from the cold. Delicious. You've definitely surpassed me in cooking. And it wasn't just cooking. The house was clean and tidied. And the laundry neatly folded. Don't worry about it, Mom. I enjoy doing it. It's a good break for me. You sure? Aren't you missing out on hanging out with your friends? I'm good. Our school doesn't have many club activities, and I have texting if I need it. That's how it is? Yeah, so don't worry. Anyway, we got our college preference forms. I'd like you to come to the three-way meeting. Of course. He always steered the conversation towards his studies. However, whenever Robert happened to return home during such times, Michael would generally become moody. I'm gonna study in my room now. Hold on, don't you have anything to say to me? You wanna attend the three-way meeting too, Dad? I'm busy, obviously can't make it. That's why I told Mom. That's okay, right? What's with that attitude towards your father? Michael didn't answer and went into his room. Naomi, what the heck kind of parenting are you doing? And thus, Robert would get upset. I wanted to tell him it was merely because he wasn't doing anything. Exactly, he wasn't contributing at all. From living expenses to Michael's school fees, I covered everything. But arguing seemed like such a waste of time. He's just in his rebellious phase. Cut him some slack. I'd often brush it off. Robert would then humph loudly, slump on the couch, pull out a whiskey bottle, and start drinking by himself. Not wanting to see an irate Robert, I'd excuse myself, mentioning work for the next day, and retreat to my room. Yes, by that time, we were sleeping in separate rooms. When the three of us were home, we'd each be in our own rooms. We were now able to live in a sufficiently large apartment. Our family continued to live in this somewhat cold atmosphere. Yet, when Michael got into the university he had been aiming for, we did celebrate together. Man, getting into a law school is something. I'm so proud. It's where I wanted to go. Michael's response was rather indifferent, but it was the truth. He had always had a law school he wanted to attend and worked hard to get in. Despite this, he didn't attend prep school and studied on his own. If I don't understand, I mean, I've got a good teacher at home. Why do I need to go out for it? At most, it was about taking a mock exam to know the national level. Saved some bucks since you're a cheap one. Is that really how you say it? Mom, I meant to say that too. You really don't need to worry about that. No, I just wanted to do it myself. Michael really is a good kid, almost too good to be true. In college, he quickly made connections, showed his face in the seminar he wanted to join, and seemed to be getting along well with his seniors. And then came his 21st birthday. He asked to celebrate when he could legally drink. You finally reached that age. Let's go have dinner at a nice place tonight. About that. He began and started fiddling with his smartphone. He then showed me the website of a restaurant. I want to go to this place. A senior who graduated from the seminar I want to join recommended it to me. The place he pointed out was a certain high-end Japanese restaurant. That place! I was genuinely surprised. It was a famous spot for multi-course meals, often featured on TV and in magazines. I was thinking of splurging, but that's a bit too much. Don't worry. The lunch menu is quite affordable. Don't you want to try a place like this at least once, Mom? Now that he mentioned it, I had been curious myself. But what about your classes, Michael? It's a special day, right? And you're taking time off work, aren't you? Something felt off about this. That place is really popular, and reservations are hard to get. Are you sure we can get in? I've actually already made a reservation. Saying this, he operated his smartphone again and showed me the reservation screen. Was that your plan all along? I chuckled. On the promised day, we met up a bit earlier than usual lunchtime at a subway exit. Having been working non-stop, I rarely had the chance to dine at fancy places, so I was looking forward to it. This way, directed Michael, leading me to a building basement, a serene setting. Inside, the private rooms for small parties seemed to be located further in, as we were led down a long corridor. We've got plenty of time reserved, he assured me. So we can take our time, I get it. Exactly, he replied. We then enjoyed the series of exquisite multi-course meal brought before us. A feast for both the eyes and the palate. It had been quite a while since I had experienced something like this. As we were savoring the final sweet dish, I noticed some commotion outside. "You're really splurging on me today, aren't you?" "Yeah, today's a special day." That voice, I recognized it and turned to look at Michael. He was calmly fiddling with his smartphone. Maybe checking messages now that we had finished our meal. "Hey." "Shoo," he gestured with his finger to his lips, a mischievous grin on his face.
"Let's listen in a bit more, Mom. And man, they sure are loud. The waitress said the thick partitions meant we wouldn't be able to hear the tables next to us, but I guess not."
Feeling a bit uneasy, I strained my ears to listen. "Drinking in the middle of the day is something, huh?" "Yeah, totally." "Well, I'm not gonna get drunk or anything. It's rare for you. You're really happy today." "Of course. That annoying brat is finally an adult. I can divorce without paying child support. And then we can finally get married." At the sound of that voice, Michael grinned and stood up in a flash. "Is this seat taken?" Michael called out from outside the closed door. What is it, exactly?" "Oops, sorry, was I too loud?" "No, that's not a problem, Dad." With that, Michael swiftly opened the door. "Ah, you are." "Hello to you too. Nice to meet you. I'm this guy's son." Clearly, the woman was flustered. She probably hadn't expected the annoying kid Michael talked about to suddenly appear right in front of her. She looked about my age, or maybe a bit younger, and was an ordinary woman, which seemed ill-fitting for the word mistress. And she looked somewhat familiar. "By any chance, did you come to sell insurance before?" I work as a lecturer at a prep school near the station." "Oh." She seemed to remember. She had come to sell insurance during a break, promising to meet with a staff member. "Then this will be quick. My name is Kate Smith. I've been seeing your husband for quite some time." "Seriously? Now that your son is an adult, I think it's time for a divorce." With a brisk tone befitting her job, Kate clearly stated her case to me. Just then, as if Robert had closed his mouth, he suddenly opened it, grabbing Kate's shoulder as if to say, "Don't say any more." However, she probably didn't realize the meaning behind Robert's actions. She turned around, intending to come towards me. "No way." As Michael said this, he took out his smartphone from his pocket. "Actually, this is perfect. I want you to meet someone I want to introduce to Dad and the others," he said, and then quickly raised his hand to signal someone. Then, crossing the long hallway, several figures approached. "Hey! Over here." "Oh? You guys haven't gotten past the stewed dishes yet. If it's a full-course meal, you're in the middle of it, aren't you?" "Hey Michael, you guys have finished eating, haven't you?" "Yes, we certainly have." "Shall we move to your room then?" "That sounds good." As Michael said this, the man and woman who came from behind the senior also chimed in. "This is a nice place. Drinking from the afternoon, the boss has it good." "Hey, you guys?" It seems like they were from the architectural office staff. "We also have something to discuss." Saying this, they led Robert and the others out of the other room. In our room, there were myself, Michael, Robert, Kate, the senior, and 2 office members, a total of 7 people gathered. "Mom, Dad, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Young, a senior in the seminar I want to join. He's a lawyer." "Nice to meet you, I am." The lawyer handed out his business cards to all of us, including the architectural office staff. "What's all this about?" "Well, I heard from Michael that there might be a divorce case coming up, so I'm here to say thanks for the work in advance." "Are you kidding me?" "No, I'm serious. Actually, aren't you and Mrs. Hudson going to discuss that now that Michael is an adult?" "Sure, we were talking about that." Saying this, Michael played back the recording of Robert's delighted voice and Kate's words from earlier. "Mom, what do you think?" "Well." Surprisingly, my response came out easily. Indeed, it could be said that I had abandoned my role as a wife to Robert quite some time ago. But I had not given up my role as a mother. That's why I wanted to maintain our family. Still, if Michael had arranged this and Robert was willing, I saw no reason to continue. "Mr. Young, do you have a divorce form?" "Actually, I do have one here." "Thank you." I swiftly wrote my name on it.
Mom, you're so understanding and quick to act.
Don't flatter me, you won't get anything more out of me today. Then, Mr. Young handed the signed paper to Robert, saying, I presume you want this as well? Here you go.
Yes.
Robert took the pen with trembling hands and signed. Thank you very much.
So this means he's free after submitting this, right?
Kate leaned in. Yes, that's right. Well, there are a few things we need you to do. What do you mean? Certainly, Naomi doesn't need child support for Michael anymore. However, she has the right to claim alimony from you too.
What?
If it's about the breakdown of the marriage, Naomi is in the same boat. That's not true. The lawyer cut in sharply. Robert's affair, not contributing financially to the household, those are grounds for alimony.
An affair? And financial abuse?
Come on, Robert. And Kate, was it? You guys admitted earlier that you've been together for a while now. That's an affair. There, the we've been together for a while part was played back. Kate gasped. Thinking you shouldn't have said that? I've known about this for a long time. That's why I asked Mom to celebrate my birthday here today. You little! I've checked the bank and the household ledger. Everything for our living expenses comes from Mom's account, including my tuition. Everything of yours goes to work and whatnot. Yet, you eat at home without question, get your laundry done, right? Look, I've been raised all along with Mom's money. Robert had no words to return to Michael's relentless statements. When on earth did he check the bank books? Indeed, I had been paying for everything in our household. Rent for the increasingly spacious apartment, groceries, utilities, so, in that sense, you've been living off me, haven't you? These words unconsciously slipped from my mouth. Living off you? That's a horrible way to put it. But isn't it true? You've been doing your favorite job all along, spending all your earnings there. Yet, you live in the apartment I rent, eat the food I buy. Clothes, well, you probably buy those yourself, but the laundry is done at our place, right? Which part of this is not living off someone? I suddenly found the hole. Why have I continued this married life up until now? Things would have been so much simpler and more comfortable if I'd just lived with Michael from the start. Undergoing a sudden change in demeanor, I left Robert and Kate utterly dumbfounded. I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't realize all this. And Mr. Young, I'd like to request a divorce not just for infidelity but also for financial abuse, and I want to claim alimony. Leave it to me. Well then, Mom, we're done here with our meal and our business, let's go home. Is it okay to leave your senior colleague? He still has business with these two. I turned my attention to a man and a woman brought over by Mr. Young. They gave me a slight bow. Nice to meet you, we are architects from the office. Oh, is that so? Nice to meet you. But, what exactly is? Yes, we are considering leaving to start our own practice, but we've been having trouble settling matters, so we wanted to consult. Realizing what was going on, I left the dumbstruck Robert and Kate behind and left the scene. On the way home, I asked Michael. Did you introduce Mr. Young to those two staff members? Well, yeah. He chuckled. I realized Dad was having an affair quite some time ago. I was mad, but I didn't know how to handle it. Then, I got interested in law and lawyers. When I got into college, I found a professor whose seminar I thought would be helpful, and I explained my situation. He told me know your enemy first. So, I started investigating everything around Dad. That's when I came across those two having a conflict with him. And you introduced them to Mr. Young? Yeah. It's better to deal a blow all at once in these situations. I was astonished at how much he'd grown without me realizing. But Michael, if you knew about Dad's affair, you should have talked to me first. Well, our daily life was stable, and I just didn't have the courage to ask you about your feelings. I ruffled his hair affectionately. I see. Then I need to respond to your feelings as well. Saying that, I made calls to both my parents and my in-laws' houses. Hello, it's been a while. This is Naomi. Actually. Soon after, our divorce was finalized, and Robert had to move out of the house. That was only natural since the house was rented under my name, not his. From then on, I heard he was staying at the office. Moreover, Robert faced even more damage later on. First, there were those two architects. They were the main workforce of the current office, and they didn't want to let them go. But with a lawyer involved, it became impossible to forcibly keep them. We respected you. But it's truly disappointing. And to think you were doing such things on top of that. We won't let it come to that. They seemingly told him off. As a result, the firm from which those two architects were pulled is apparently in quite a turmoil now. From the heydays to rock bottom in an instant. From now on, they'll have to pull out all the stops to get the firm back on track. Maintaining the firm itself seems to be a headache. The severance pay for them, the alimony for me, and the maintenance of the office building, which presupposes a certain number of people. There are a lot of expenses at the moment, but as an employer, they still have to protect the remaining staff. However, now that a considerable amount of work was entrusted to those two, what Robert and the other staff can do is quite limited. With no other option, he thought of borrowing the necessary funds for the time being and went to see his in-laws, with whom he lives along with his sister and her husband. There, he was severely reprimanded by both my father-in-law, furious about the recent turn of events, and my mother-in-law, who adores their grandson. "We might not have a huge inheritance to leave behind, but we've decided not to give you any of it. We'll give that portion to Michael." So said, Michael, who went to see how things were, came back reporting with glee. And Kate too. Due to the comings and goings of lawyers, her long-time role as a customer's mistress got spread around the office. Moreover, this put a significant dent in her business as an insurance salesperson, where customer trust is crucial. She was a top-performing salesperson, but her customers started leaving in no time. With office politics and backstabbing happening, showing vulnerability was a bad move. Her salary has decreased, and on top of that, she has to pay alimony. Thanks to all this, her relationship with Robert is now quite strained. "It would have been better if we'd just divorced properly earlier." "Well, you agreed with what I said back then, didn't you?" I can only think that it serves them right. Sometime after that, we moved to a slightly smaller place from our previous residence. That's because Michael, taking the initiative, said, "Wouldn't a smaller place be fine?" Indeed, that's true. For now, it's just the two of us living together. I'm sure this thoughtful and well-prepared Michael will pass his bar exam early. And someday, he'll get a girlfriend, get married, and leave my nest to stand on his own. When that time comes, I'll be the only one left. There's no use in having a too-spacious house for just myself. From now on, there's no deadweight named Robert. For a while, it's just going to be Michael and me in our cozy little space, living a joyful life.